We're in Delft, a beautiful city in the western part of the Netherlands. Although Delft is not known for watchmaking, we're going to visit one of the most remarkable watchmakers of our times. His name is Michiel Holthinrichs and he's known for 3D printed watches. Michiel Holthinrichs' story is quite unconventional, and so are his watches. During his master's studies in architecture, Michiel became interested and actually fascinated by ornaments. Let's go and meet Michiel in his atelier. Michiel, can you tell us what got you into watchmaking in the first place?
Since I was 8, I wanted to become an architect. During my studies, I went to work in practice. And I learned that it was a lot about, project development and money. And at the same time, I got into the architectural ornaments, so the little details, what actually makes the expression of a building. For me, that was the connection to a watch. I loved watches, I collected watches, and I thought that's actually the personal ornament.
So basically, as useless as ornaments are on buildings, except for the sheer pleasure of it, they're actually on the wrist more or less similar. Except they do tell a bit of time.
Yeah, they do tell time, but I want to reply on that in the sense that ornaments are super important. The perception is that it's not important anymore, or that it's for pleasure, mm-hmm. But having a symbolic or artistic expression is super important. And I think we see that much too less nowadays.
So Michiel, why starting with 3D printing of the cases?
I started with the idea of making my own watch, and I realized that it was a new way of producing things, not only for prototypes, but also to create shapes, etc. And the fact that I could make a single piece, for me as a student at the time, was obviously very attractive.
And there are also some special advantages of 3D printing besides the fact that you're making one-offs each time.
Yeah.
For instance, with the signature and other personalizations.
In my opinion, the largest potentials of 3D printing are the fact that you can customize each single piece because it's a computer-controlled process. So you can print, for example, 10 cases next to each other and they all are a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So that's customization. And furthermore, actually the thing I like best about 3D printing is the possibilities for design. My goal or my vision is to make a beautiful timepiece. And of course I'm an architect, so I'm looking towards shapes, proportions, etc. And with this technology you can make shapes which are not possible using conventional methods.
Michiel, your architectural influences, are they visible in the designs, and in what way are they visible?
I think architecture is the main focus in my vision in watchmaking. Mm-hmm. For example, this is the raw ornament. This is my modernist watch. It has a side which is skeletonized, which you can only do in this way using 3D printing. It has a lot of details. It has my signature, it has a production number, etc. But you can also see the fact that it's skeletonized makes it a constructional piece. So you only have the lines which are actually structural. And in this case, you also have a contrast between a polished finishing and a raw finishing, and the raw is actually the outcome of the printing. So it shows also the material process and the production process, which is very modernistic, very architectural way of thinking. This case, which I will now show only in the back because it's a prototype, this one is my Art Nouveau watch. So that's also very much architectural. I'm inspired by Victor Horta. It's a Belgian architect who invented the Art Nouveau. Mm-hmm. His designs are very light, very elegant, and you have floating natural shapes. And with this case, I wanted to bring that kind of architecture inside a watch. And I think the outcome is quite spectacular. You have hollow pieces, you have curvy shapes, mm-hmm. And again, this is really something which you can make with 3D printing, which you cannot mill, for example.
So Michiel, the 3D printing offers a lot of possibilities, but must also have some downsides. Can you tell us more about that? I
already said something about the precision of metal printing. So the reason why it took so long to make my first prototype was the fact that we needed to have a precision which is not possible with 3D printing. So we needed to find a way to approach the precision and to do post-processing which brings in the actual precision for the movement, fitting, etc. And the second thing is that we needed to have a product which is reproducible. You can produce one piece and then it might be okay, but producing 10 or maybe 100 or 1,000 is a different story, especially with this technology. Furthermore, you can make exceptional shapes using this technology, but there are some limitations to it. Is that you need to take into account that during the process the product gets very hot, and it's a melting of powder on top of each other, and the product tends to get more heavy when it's melted together, so it tends to fall away in the powder. So it's a technical story, but it means that you need to have support structures during the process, and that's one thing which, well, you don't want too many of those structures in your design because you have to remove it by hand. So that's the story of the printing. Furthermore, if you make something which is not possible to produce with a conventional technology, then it also means that the finishing is difficult. So all the finishing is done by hand, and it takes at minimum 2 days of 10 hours to finish one watch case. So it's quite a labor-intensive process. But then again, you have a beautiful design. So the point is not to be effective, but to make beauty.
Yeah, not even the cleverest CNC machine could do anything like this. So we've discussed the exterior of your watches, but there is also an interior, meaning a beating movement.
The movement, it has to be mechanical, is super important for a watch. But for me, it's more. It's part of the design also. So, in the first place, for the first watches I made, I have chosen a movement which would suit my design best, which is the Peso 7001. It's a very slim movement. It's very elegant in layout.
Very reliable, which
very
is also
reliable.
important.
Yeah. Well, I take it apart totally, and I rework all the pieces. A new gear train bridge, some very traditional finishing. That's also one of the fun parts I like in my work is the hyper modern or state-of-the-art technology which I use for the production of the case, and actually very traditional and very high-end finishing of the movement itself. And I think that blends tradition and new technology together, which actually makes it a very active or very contemporary way of working. So I'm working on my own movement. It's going to be very slim and skeletonized because you have to see it. It's part of the concept of the case also, that it's skeletonized.
Sorry for interrupting you, but you're going to design an entirely new movement, or are you going to base it on an existing movement with redone bridges?
Well, it's my own developed caliber, but some parts I will source in Switzerland.
So developing a new movement, there's a new case design slowly coming together. How much of the new movement are you producing yourself here in-house, and what's done in Switzerland, and when can we expect to see something?
Well, I'm working on it already for more than 2 years, and that's because the requirements for the precision are super high, of course. You have to think about thousandths of a millimeter.
You do the design, some external Swiss company has more precision tools to produce the parts, and you do the finishing and assembly and everything.
Exactly. That's very important because only then you can control the beauty of the end result.
But it steps further away from using a 7001 gear train and clutch works.
Well, I will use the gear train, just like La Joux-Perret, for example.
Yeah, and many others.
Yeah, and but I will make a new layout, a new architecture actually, and I will make some new parts, some new gears, and the idea is that it's going to be a conceptual or a concept in which later on also modules can be placed, for example, power reserve.
Yeah.
But it will be super high end, so each and every single part even the gears will be totally finished by hand and have a beautiful finish. So it will be something different.
Very much looking forward to seeing more.
Thank you.